What's up, everybody? I'm Greg Miller, and this is IGN Insights, where each and every episode we tackle a hot-button gaming issue with a special guest. Now, fighting game fans can get their hands on Injustice: Gods Among Us today, but comic nerds like me have been reading the ongoing series for weeks. Superman's gone mad, Batman's on the run, and Lois Lane is dead. It's awesome. Here to explain how he's able to get away with all this craziness and how he's been part of crafting the narrative, I'm joined by Injustice Comics writer Tom Taylor. Tom, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Good morning.
Tom.
Night, whatever it's there.
Yeah, well, you're in Australia. It doesn't matter. It's the middle of the night where you are. It's nice and early here in San Francisco. Explain to me how any of this happens. Basically, DC Comics gives you the keys to the kingdom and just allows you to kill everyone.
Yeah, that's exactly how it happened. They came to me one day, they said, Tom, here are the keys to the kingdom, kill everybody. And I said, yay!
I'm glad I nailed it. That was a good question. No, seriously, so how did you get involved with Injustice? Did they have an idea for a fighting game and then came to you with a story, or how did this all happen?
Yeah, basically I was working with my editor, Jim Chadwick at DC. I wrote The Authority with him a few years back after doing a whole lot of Star Wars work. I'd just come off a couple of Star Wars things, including I just killed Boba Fett, so they saw that I could kill people who were famous, so that helped. And then, yeah, I told Jim that I was ready to work with him again and would love to, and he said he might have something, and a few weeks later, the Injustice script to the game just appeared.
Nice. So I've played through the game. The game's out today. We'll keep it top-level, non-specific spoilery.
Yep.
You read through the script, and then basically they just say, however you want to get us there, get us there?
Surprisingly, yes.
Wow.
That is kind of it. I mean, there are a couple of key things that had to happen. Like you said, the death of Lois, which pretty much destroyed me to write.
Well, that's what I was talking about. You know, like, for me, being a Superman fan right now, I miss that interaction of Clark and Lois, that love between Superman and Lois. And I get it from Injustice, and I get it from Smallville, whereas the New 52, you know, these characters are relearning each other and getting where it is. And so you have so many wonderful moments. And even in the issue 14 came out today for Injustice, you have this great moment where Superman, you know, it's exposed to the world that he was Clark Kent at one time, and he's talking to this reporter, right? And she says that she met Clark that one time at the Pulitzer Prize, and Lois won. And, you know, if you don't mind me saying, your wife was a better writer. And Superman just has that grin and says, yeah, she was.
Yeah, she was. That's exactly it. And, you know, I grew up with Superman. Superman #1. Like, I wrote Star Wars for a lot of years, but Superman #1 was my movie. It was the movie that I loved as a kid. It was the movie that I looked up to, and I wanted to write Superman and Lois, and this was the first time anybody had let me do that. It's what I've always aspired to. And then they told me I had to kill her, and the way that happened, and what that meant for Superman, and, you know, the fact that she was pregnant with his child, and yes, and my heart just sank a bit, but I tried to tell it as true to those characters as I could. You know, it was, I tried to give them the relationship in the few pages that I had with them that I like so much about them.
Yeah, and I mean, I personally think you nail it. And that's one of the interesting things, right, is that when Injustice debuted and they said, well, you know, Superman, he's going to take over the world pretty much, right? He's kind of gone off his rocker. That was such a leap to make, but reading the books and watching how the story develops, you understand his, you know, losing touch and where he thinks he's making the right moves. What other points do they make you hit for that story? Obviously, Lois has to die. Metropolis explodes because of it. Superman kills the Joker. That all happens in the first 5 seconds of the game, so don't freak out. But what other stuff did you have to do? Like, I guess the whole Aquaman stuff, right? Where, you know, he has this whole fight about Atlantis.
No.
Nice.
No, I mean, I knew where they get to in the game with Aquaman, with going to see him. I don't want to spoil anything, but going to see him with the treaty, etc. So I knew that there was friction beforehand, and I wanted to come up with the friction. You know, I don't want to spoil this for you, but, you know, the Kraken was just something I wanted to do. Because it's the Kraken. But yeah, no, there's been a huge amount of freedom on this, and I think it's because the games guys have really enjoyed what I've been doing. Like the writers, John and Dominic and all these guys, and Brad, like, they like the work I've been doing and they appreciate it. They think it adds to the overall story that they told. And so I've had a lot of free reign, especially after, you know, years of license book and years of Star Wars work. This is the most freedom I think I've ever had on a license book. And that's, largely thanks to Jim Chadwick at DC and Hank and all those guys, as well as the NetherRealm guys.
So is it this weird kind of co-ownership of the universe? Like, they set up the skeleton, they have their game story, but then you get to go out and do all this really cool stuff with the characters, right? 13, you had these great moments where Superman and Wonder Woman take out this guy who they thought was a threat. It turned out he was just some dumb kid, so then the Flash finds out he was his biggest fan. It's like, you're exploring them in a way, I think, that enhances the game, right? It makes so much more sense when you're playing the game and you're like, oh, this is where they started to break apart.
Well, that's exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted, I've read licensed books in the past that have, had things called for and they just didn't feel natural. Whereas we've actually had the space. Like you said earlier, this is sort of a tale of Superman going evil, but we didn't want to tell that. I didn't want to say, so this horrible thing happens to him and the next day he's evil! Kittens! And, he staples Boy Scouts to unicorns and laughs.
That's all it took. One thing, and he's the worst person in the world.
That's exactly it. And that does happen. We've read stories like that, and I didn't want to see that. I wanted to show the Superman that I knew, who had something tragic happen, took him to an extreme place, but was still trying to help the world in his own little twisted way.
Right. So then, the game's out today, but the story you're writing doesn't seem to be anywhere near done. Like, again, I'm not spoiling things. I've played the game where there's a key moment in today's comic with Batman and his son. How much further are you going to go with Injustice?
Well, I'm not sure we can actually say how much further we're going to go, but we're going to go a lot further. I mean, right now, I just stopped writing Chapter 21 to start talking to you. And Chapter 21 is the start of a new arc, so we've got a fair way to go. And I'm hoping we get to announce something probably about Thursday about how much further we're going to go on the DC website. I
mean, you figure you got 5 years to fill in. You got a whole bunch of time there before the game starts. You got plenty of stories to tell.
Yeah, and we're having fun, and we're telling stories that people seem to be engaged by. And I mean, the sales have been insane. I've never seen anything like this, and you don't really stop things when they're going this well, if you can help it. And I just feel like I've got a whole lot more to tell. I've got a lot more story to tell.
You talk about sales and how it's been selling and reacting with fans. This is an interesting one. It's part of one of the new DC initiatives, having these not only digital books, but having weekly digital books, right? Like, you're putting out chapters of Injustice right now for 99 cents every Tuesday, and then monthly they get compiled into an issue people can buy in stores. Is that a process you like? It seems like, is that more work or is that less work?
Well, it's a lot more work because it's effectively doing 2 comics a month, and that's a lot of work.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yes, coffee.
Yeah,
yeah. It's currently 3:45 in the morning in Melbourne, and I have another interview to do, a written interview for DC, and then I've got to finish off the script, and then at some stage I'll sleep. And then I'll start working on the TV show that I also work on.
Go ahead, give it a plug. What's the TV show?
Oh, the TV show is called The Deep. It doesn't exist yet, but
look for it soon.
I just remembered something. The graphic novels of The Deep, Heavy Dragons and The Deep, The Vanishing Island, they look like that. No, wrong shoulder. Actually come out in the US on Wednesday.
There you go.
So they've been optioned. It's about a multi-ethnic family of underwater explorers who live on a submarine and their adventures. It's joyous. You'll love it. We'll fill your heart with rainbows.
So, that's good news. So then, what do you prefer more then? The traditional comic structure of doing a monthly book, or do you like this weekly deal?
I do quite like the weekly deal. I don't know how I'm going to survive without it once it's done, because I'm so used to, writing a comic every single week and then having it go up on every Tuesday and seeing people's reaction to it. And I think I'm just going to feel lonely when it's done. But hopefully we get to do this for a long time, and maybe I'll do another one afterwards. But it really is, I mean, it's such an honor to do a gig like this.
Oh, yeah.
And to have people respond to it this well. I mean, yeah, to be able to, all the toys I played with as a kid, I now get to play with again, and people pay me to do so. You can't ask for more than that.
Final question, and you bring up the toys you play with as a kid. Do you see this being kind of a viable future for the big comic publishers, right? Like DC went through the New 52, trying to get the universe back to a point where anyone could jump in and read and understand what was happening. But, you know, with a monthly book, all these stories, all these characters, it, needless to say, eventually spirals out of control, and it's, if you haven't been keeping up with, there's going to be references you don't get. But with Injustice, right, you're able to put out this self-contained story and be like, this is the arc, you don't have to worry about it. You can start at issue 1 and go and get the whole story. Do you see that being a more viable future than a continuity-based comic future?
Well, I think both futures are viable. That's the thing. I mean, there are people who want the continuity, and then there are people that we need to get. There are the new readers. You know, I'm trying to attract young kids. This Injustice has attracted more new readers. I mean, we see it every day on Twitter. I'm getting all these tweets from people saying, hey, just reading Injustice for the first time. This is the first comic I've ever read. Love it. I'm going to get into the New 52. And that's exactly what we want. You know, there's this great place for these essentially Elseworld stories that aren't bogged down in continuity, that are just good stories about superheroes and about the characters that everybody should love, that need, you know, that have their place. And then there are hundreds of thousands of people who are following the continuity of DC that want those stories. And I think there's a place for all of these, and the more people who are reading comics, it doesn't matter what the comics are about, we just love the medium. As far as I'm concerned, you know, it's the greatest storytelling medium in the world, so more power to it.
Amen. Well,
yes.
Very well said, Tom. Well said. Please keep up the great work. Make sure you keep snuffing out heroes in very, very cool ways, all right?
I shall. I'm coming up to killing somebody just horribly in the next couple of weeks.
Oh, well, there you go. Everybody, Tuesdays, look for them. 99 cents. Injustice, Gods Among Us. If you at home are an expert and you think you'd be a good fit for the nerdy conversation that is IGN Insights, hit me up on Twitter with a link, and you could be in the next episode. Now, if you have a developer or a personality I should be talking to in the industry, send them my way on Twitter, too. Until then, keep on reading comics beyond.